Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. We're going to be recording here in just a second and just getting social media hooked up, making sure all the I's are dotted, T's are crossed, and getting everything in operating condition before we kick everything off. So let's go over here and look. Yep, everything looks like it's all connected. Yeah, you never would believe it, but there's a million moving parts in the background here that everything has to work together. So, we look at showing everybody on my team ready to fly.
Let's do it.
I'm getting head nods. So, all right. What am I forgetting? I'm forgetting something, but I don't know what it is. That's what I'm forgetting. I don't have ads set up on my Stream Deck, and I've got to do that. Now I can do that. All right, let's hear from Massad Ayub in 5, 4, 3.
Hey gang, this is Massad Ayub from the Pro Arms Podcast. I'm here to remind you that our podcast is a member of the Self-Defense Radio Network, and I'm going to suggest you do what we do and check out the other podcasts at selfdefenseradio.net.
Treat every firearm as if it's loaded.
Never point a firearm at anything you're not willing to kill or destroy.
Keep your finger off the trigger until you are on target and ready to fire.
Always be sure of your target and what lies beyond it.
Hi, and welcome to the Second Amendment Foundation's Polite Society podcast. We're recording this one on Monday, November the 1st, 2021. I'm Paul Lathrop.
I'm Rob Morse, and on tonight's show, we'll look at the American Broadcasting Corporation's recent propaganda to try and outlaw modern sporting rifles.
I'm Charlie Cook, and we'll talk about a Canadian gun buyback that has used millions of dollars and brought in 0 firearms.
I'm Robyn Sandoval, and I don't know where the show notes are, so I'm just winging it tonight with you guys.
So climb aboard.
Strap in.
And hang on.
Episode 599 of the Polite Society podcast starts right now. All right. If it's Monday night, if it's 6 p.m. Central Time, the only time zone that matters, it must be time for the Polite Society podcast. Rob, it's been a few weeks since you've been on the air, man. What's been up with you lately?
I was out of the country for 10 days. It's very nice to be back where I can drink the water without worry and carry concealed. Robyn, what have you been up to?
Oh, I've been crazy busy over here at A Girl and a Gun. We have tons of new members joining us, like always. We have new chapters opening. I'm fixing to take a group of girls up to the USCCA headquarters in a week or two, and so we're all getting all of that situated. We've finished our Fall Fest, our match. Just been a lot of travel and a lot of new members and a lot of onboarding. Charlie, how about you?
Thanks, Robyn. This past weekend, I actually taught a home firearm safety class to a number of people who needed to get their license to carries. And one of the students took a class with me in 2014, but he never filled out the application. So the chief of police made him go back to start all over. Paul, how about yourself?
Well, for me, it's been doing a lot of getting caught up with doing things I really should have been doing all along. I finally got everything lined up for going to SHOT Show, and I've got guests booked now, not for tonight, but for the next several weeks of Polite Society podcast. and working on beyond for that. But I've got the next 3 weeks of PSP booked, and looking forward to some of the guests you're going to see next week on Monday. 1 week from tonight, John Petrolino is going to join us. 2 weeks from tonight, Chris Chang is going to be joining us on the air. Really looking to that. 3 weeks from tonight is going to be Tom Knighton of Bearing Arms. I call him the attitude behind Bearing Arms. Really look forward to talking to him coming up. So did a lot of that. Not a lot with guns, though. We've had a little bit of a reprieve from the cold weather. Been doing a little bit of motorcycle riding. And while we get a little bit of time to do that, I mean, after all, it is November. Highs have been in the 50s. I don't expect that to last a whole lot longer. Old man winter is going to be coming. So while I've had the time, I've been, if there's a store run to be made, I've been running on the motorcycle if I can. So that's kind of what's been up with me. So, and yes, there is that you are not hearing me in the deep, normal tone I usually have, because the microphone I usually use, you kind of bit the big one earlier today. I'm using a different microphone. It's a little bit more tinny and picks up more of the background noise in the room, so I don't sound exactly like I normally do, but Amazon will deliver another $200 microphone in a few weeks, and I'll go back to sounding like I normally do. So that's what's going on there. Let's see here. We're getting a few comments coming in. I want to remind everybody watching, if you want to join the conversation, whether it be a snarky comment, a regular comment, or a serious comment about what we're referring to, just go ahead and comment, and we will get your comments up on the air. Like Charlie is already checking in, and Charlie says hello from Goldsboro, North Carolina. Hey, Charlie. And our writer Dana is already getting in and commenting. So, hey, everybody. Well, we are really, normally I figure we're going to be going to break at 10 minutes after the hour, after we all say what's been up with us in our personal lives. Man, we've been just screaming through this. I think we're ready to go to break early. But I suppose before I should do that, I should tell everybody about the Self-Defense Radio Network. As you can see, we've got 15 shows there up on the network. I'm going to show you here. If for example, let's go to Self-Defense Gun Stories, Rob's show. And if you click on that, if I can get my mouse is not working. Why is my mouse not working? There we go. You can see on there when you click on it, it brings up off to the right there, latest stories. You can even click and play the shows right in your browser. We're not going to do that tonight, but you get, if you go to selfdefenseradio.net, you can get all the shows, and you can subscribe or listen right off the webpage. So go to sdrn.us or selfdefenseradio.net will take you to the website for the network. That's going to do it. We're going to go ahead and step aside to break. We're going to hear from SAF. When we come back, we've got news. We'll get to that right after this.
Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have vowed to take away your Second Amendment rights through gun bans, gun confiscation, and government regulations. Now, Joe Biden is no longer hiding his real intentions, and we need you to take action now.
Whether it's a 9mm pistol or whether it's a rifle, is ridiculous. I'm continuing to push to eliminate the sale of those things. But
the Biden administration is coming after your right to own any gun, and we need you to text PROTECT2A to 474747 now. Joe Biden has already issued executive orders. He is now demanding Congress push through radical gun legislation. You can fight back to stop Joe Biden's gun grab, but you must text PROTECT2A to 474747. Take action to protect your right to keep and bear arms. We urgently need millions of Americans to text PROTECT2A to 474747. Again, text PROTECT2A to 474747 right now.
Hey, and welcome back. This is the news segment of the Polite Society podcast, presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. Rob, tell me this isn't true. The first news story says that ABC News is distorting the news? That can't
I know
be
you were
right.
shocked. You were shocked. I asked you to take your meds. I was worried about you, Paul. Yep, they're at it again. ABC is peddling the myth that the 1994 assault weapons ban actually led to fewer deaths in armed massacres. What bothers me particularly about this story is the way the news media covers massacres induces the follow-on copycat crimes. No, the network, instead of shouldering their own responsibility, wants low-information voters and viewers to think that we need a new gun ban. The number of modern sporting rifles that were manufactured and sold in the 90s, yeah, you know, those nasty black rifles, that's a small number compared to current sales figures. Now it's the most popular rifle sold. The number of crimes involving either shotguns or rifles are very small when compared to the crimes committed with knives, and even more small and even less significant when compared to the armed aggravated assaults committed with handguns. In 2012, many years after the expiration of the rifle ban, only 322 people were murdered with any kind of rifle. The media's obsession with which disproportionately involves AR-style rifles has led to this cry for a gun ban again. Given the frightening rise in crime in many Democrat-controlled cities today, yeah, you know, the same cities where they defunded the police, gun-grabbing groups are attacking the Second Amendment using this propaganda as cover. Our right to defend ourselves is at risk, and these anti-gun groups are also providing political cover for failed Democrat politicians. Who's going to take the next story?
Well, let's before we do that, yeah, I'm not entirely shocked that they're doing this. The number one thing we can do to combat this is to, and I hate to sound self-serving, but I'm going to be self-serving. The number one thing we can do to combat this is to do things like share the Polite Society podcast, share the Daily Bullet, share Bearing Arms stories, reliable, and I mean reliable, Second Amendment news sources. Share the heck out of them. Make sure they get as wide a dispersion as possible. Go around legacy media. Make sure that good Second Amendment media gets out there.
Well, and go ahead, Charlie. What you thinking?
I was going to say it baffles me that they're using this play from 30 years ago. Do you know what I mean? Like it didn't work before. It's certainly not going to work now. When there's a mass bow and arrowing in Norway,
right?
And when Australia wants to ban bows and arrows, why don't they just ban killing people? Like, why don't they ban attacks? Why don't they ban, any sort of personal violence against innocent people? It's completely nuts to me that this didn't work before. It's not going to work again. Anything that they're going to do is not going to work because there are evil people out there that want to do evil things, and there are innocent people and people like us who practice and train and carry firearms and could possibly and potentially stop one of these. And we all know John Lott's statistics where it's 2.5 million times a year that someone stops a crime from being committed with a firearm, even if it's they pull the firearm out and brandish it and they do not have to fire it. It's completely nuts that that ABC would want to go back to this from 20, 30 years ago.
Robyn, do you have an idea why?
I think there's two things that I would say to that. And first of all is we as gun owners need to make rifles normal, mainstream. So often these scary guns that are only seen in the media, many times people can't relate to them because they think, oh, I don't live in the country where I hunt often, or I don't live in an area where I need to protect my home with a rifle, or but for us to show them as mainstream, when I take pictures of me enjoying my time on the range with my friends with my rifle, I'm showing them this is an everyday thing. This is not a super scary something that's foreign to them. I think those of us who love shooting with our rifles need to mainstream rifle use. Secondly, I think like what you said, Charlie, it's so often when people who have this idea that we can, when your toddler writes on the wall, it's easier just to take all the markers out of the house. That's an easier get it done solution. But for the long term, it's the easier solution, but it's also not what's best for the long term. There's a lot of other things that have to happen in terms of teaching your children discipline and the same way that we teach our children gun safety, having these ongoing conversations. And so that's what I liken it to when I talk to non-gunners and anti-gunners. Yeah, it's a solution, but is it really what people do? Is it really reasonable that you're going to get rid of all the markers and all the crayons in your house? No, it's not reasonable. Let's talk about what is reasonable and in terms of education, not legislation, in terms of mainstreaming rifle use and offering an invitation to those who maybe are not familiar with shooting a rifle if they want to come to the range with us and shoot them.
And that's a great point. Go ahead, Charlie.
I'm going to jump in real quick. That is a great analogy. When your kids write on the walls, you don't take the markers away from them. Go ahead, Paul.
I sometimes wonder if we're not going around the order. We're doing the order of firearms progression entirely wrong. My very first gun, and it was not a firearm, my very first gun was a long gun. It was a pellet rifle. My very first firearm was a .22 caliber rifle.
Right.
And I was way too young to be going to. It was given to me. I was way too young to be going to buy one for myself. As people are adults, the far better home defense firearm is the best home defense firearm that there is, in my opinion, is the AR-15. Let's face it, both. I can make it fit me, and Susan can make it fit her in about a second and a half. It has a better capacity than any handgun in the house. It is far more powerful than any handgun in the house. I'm wondering if everybody seems to get their handgun first and then eventually, after they get a few handguns, maybe graduate to a rifle. Are we going about this wrong? If we're getting a handgun for defense and our primary concern is home defense, are we maybe going about the acquisition of firearms in the wrong order? Should we maybe get the AR first and then graduate to handguns when we're going to be getting protection outside the home?
Well, Paul, are you describing the different? Are you describing the differences between gun culture 1.0 and 2.0, Robyn?
Well, I see a lot of women who are in that exact journey where they, many of them start with the idea of home defense before they become concealed carriers. So I think that it's really balanced, and some of them become competitors before they become home defenders, before they become concealed carriers. We're seeing lots of different people with their personal journey. So I think it's just a matter of exposing all gun owners to the different platforms and inviting them to learn about all of them. Because it's easy to give that scary rifle, it gets the bad rap. Like you said in the news, it's used for nefarious as propaganda, really. And all of us see that all the time. But if you're not in our community to see the good that rifles do, whether it's hunting or sports or just good old fun, then I think that's really missed opportunity for us to communicate with the non-gunners and anti-gunners about how much we love our rifle and how much fun it is and how safe it is.
Robyn, we defend ourselves with a long gun too. I mean, we can include that.
Absolutely.
Paul,
I think it's a great home defense rifle, yes.
Paul, I think ABC knows that the media market has changed. We used to read newspapers and at least occasionally watch the evening news. Now we watch TikTok and we think we're informed. If they can so much as splash a headline that says assault rifle ban will save lives, they've done 90% of the political work right there. They don't need an argument, just a headline.
Yeah. I'm not going to argue that at all. Yeah, the headline is, and let's face it, that's all that a lot of people are going to get out of that article. That's that they're going to catch the headline, and that's all they need of it. How many times have you seen on social media somebody shared something, and you go, you click the headline, and then it turns out the article was 5-6 years old. They never looked at the article. They just, that's interesting. I'm going to share this. You know, that.
Or the best is when they quantify it. When they quantify it, I'm not sure about this, but I'm sharing it anyway.
Right.
Makes me crazy.
Right. I may have been guilty of sharing articles that are 3 or 4 years old. I'm like, oh wait, this is great. Oh, never mind, it's old. And then I usually try to go back. I try to cover my tracks. So if I make that sort of mistake, I try to go back and delete the article and be like, all right, egg on my face, let's keep moving.
George Geller has a great comment. 12 gauge and a Malinois dog for home defense, and I cannot pronounce that dog breed. Malinois, whatever.
Malinois?
Yeah, there you go. I'm going to say this for those of you, and I've said this a million times before, let's make it 1,000,001. If you've got a dog, great. They are fantastic companions, and they are amazing alarm systems. But that's where it needs to end. Our dogs are alarm systems, and they're very, very good at it. But they are not attack dogs, and please don't train them as such. Our dogs are there to let us know that somebody's there that's not supposed to be, and that's where their responsibility ends. So I would very much encourage you. Yes, dogs are wonderful. They will let you know when somebody's not supposed to be there, but you are the defender of the house.
Hey, can we comment on his weapons choice, particularly, Robyn, for new gun owners? I've seen these mini 12-gauge shells, and you can put a lot of those in a magazine tube. Is that an appropriate load for inside the home?
I've seen the minis in birdshot. I don't know that I've seen buck in the minis. Birdshot is for birds. I would not recommend that. Birdshot's for birds. I think there's, I just took a defensive home defense shotgun class last Sunday, and it was a lot of fun to look at the different ballistics. And if you ever have a chance to go to the range and shoot into ballistic gel or to analyze your targets from the patterning from different shotguns, it's definitely beneficial, and I encourage everyone to do that if you can. I think the difference between choosing a buckshot 12-gauge shotgun for home defense versus a 30 rounder or 223 for home defense is really a personal choice. There's benefits and pros and cons to both of them, and I think more than anything it means you taking on that responsibility for yourself, for analyzing your home. My home might be set up different than your home, and it's knowing that I know how to manipulate these firearms. I know how to use them right when I fall out of bed in the middle of the night. I have it accessible, stored safely, all of these things that a family needs to take into consideration. So there's really not a one size fits all. I'm not going to tell some other family how to set up their home for self-defense. I wouldn't want them telling me how to set up mine, but definitely seek training and understand the ballistics, not only the round that you choose to use, but also the penetration value, the velocity. Most of our rounds nowadays don't have we don't have to worry too much about over penetration, unless obviously don't put a slug round or anything like that. But understand your ammunition and understand your backstop, and whether that bad guy has a backstop behind him or her, and how it lays out in your home. There's a lot of things to consider when you choose your caliber for home defense.
We all need to take Joe Biden's advice and just buy a shotgun. Buy a shotgun.
Exactly.
No blast in the air. No, don't do it.
I told my wife, Jill, fire 2 blasts into the air.
Yeah, use up out of a double barrel. Use up all of your available ammunition.
I I hope all
Look,
of our
you can
listeners know that that's incredibly illegal.
It's a joke,
You know,
right? It's illegal. It's dangerous, and you should just shoot him in the knee. I mean, come on, man.
don't,
Oh,
And then
okay.
circle
don't
back
follow
to
any
it.
of Joe
Yeah.
Biden's advice.
Right.
Yeah, let me circle back to that. Hold on. No, that was fascinating. I saw a news article today that said the training to, quote, shoot to wound. You go, all right. What that tells the cop is I don't need to wait for a lethal threat where I could use a lethal firearm. All I now need is a chance of serious bodily injury because I never shot to wound. The fact that he died, that's just inadvertent. My bad. Do-over. Not for the wounded person. So the comment, and I thought it was insightful, was that the so-called desire to shoot to wound means a lot more people are going to get shot.
Oh, sure. That is a great point. And obviously, I'm joking when I say this. Buy a shotgun and whatever. But yeah, we don't. Right, shoot in the legs. Yeah, if people think they're more likely to shoot just to wound somebody, then they might get a little more. Trigger happy is not the right word, but they might be more inclined to shoot someone if they're just shooting to wound them.
Yeah, exactly.
Then a firearm might not be your preferred self-defense tool if that's.
Oh, sure.
I mean, I'm
Absolutely.
pulling my firearm if I'm shooting to stop. We have a lot of other tools in the toolbox to use if you just need to give some space or there's any questionable variations there.
Right. It's one of these things that if you're in a lethal force encounter and you're in fear for your life, but you're just shooting to wound someone, but you didn't want to hurt the person that was going to kill you, maybe it wasn't a self-defense situation, or maybe it wasn't a lethal force situation if you're just taking the time to aim to hit one of their knees.
Yeah.
Of course, I always tell people if you can shoot two small moving targets over a big torso, then you should be on the sniper field.
Right.
Charlie, let's get that next story. We've already burned up all but 3 minutes of the news segment. Let's get that next story.
Oh my gosh. All right, the next one. Anti-gun violence organizations are pressuring Pennsylvania lawmakers to take action against gun violence. Two bills pending in the Pennsylvania legislature are SB 448, which would allow out-of-state organizations to sue municipalities if they violate the state's preemption law, and SB 565, which would allow anyone over the age of 18 to carry concealed in public. This drops the age from 21 to 18 and enacts permitless carry. Also, the Pennsylvania legislature is enacting legislation to improve access to mental health treatment. Governor Tom Wolf has vowed to veto SB 448 and 565 should they pass.
Yeah, Pennsylvania, you need to get on. Let's put it this way. Even if they pass the legislature, the chances of either of these becoming law, pretty much zero, because they're not going to pass with a veto-proof majority. You need to elect better representatives. And, Rob, what do you think, man?
I wonder about my fellow citizens who call themselves Second Amendment supporters and Democrats because their legislature doesn't vote that way. So, that's like being I'm a vegetarian carnivore. I hear the words, I just don't see the behavior. Please pass the ketchup and steak sauce. So, well, I appreciate what I think pro-gun politicians are doing here. All the Democrats who said they were pro-gun get a chance to vote that way, or not. And now we'll see. Because, I'm really for the Second Amendment, then why don't you vote that way?
Amen.
And I do want to, we do not have a guest tonight, so if we go a little bit long on the news segment, please forgive us. I want to cover this next story as well, and I'll go ahead and read this one. CNN has attempted to muddy the waters for the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin by claiming the justices have to consider what type of firearm is carried outside the home. They discuss a 50-year-old study by U.S. Army Colonel Trevor Dupuy. The study calculated the lethal capacity of weapons across time. The TLI table showed how many persons a soldier with a weapon could theoretically kill in 1 hour. CNN argues that dramatic changes started during and after the Civil War. They claim that the issue before the court concerns the conditions under which an individual can carry a firearm publicly on their person. They claim the question should take into account the weapon chosen to be carried. You know what?
No, I think you're about to hit the exciting part, Paul. Please keep going.
We argue that if you're going to take into account the advances in firearm technology to say what a person can and cannot carry, you must also account for the changes and improvements in trauma care, starting with Dr. Jonathan Letterman's innovation during the Civil War battlefield, including the system of triage we still use today, to the advances proven on battlefields of Iraq and Afghanistan, including the use of tourniquets to stop massive bleeding. I also say, and this is trite and we do it almost every time, but if you're going to quantify how many people can be killed, I'm going to quantify how much idiocy you can spread by using the internet compared to a quill pen.
I mean, let's face it, we're in the 21st century. These people should go back to AOL if they're going to do that.
MySpace.
They need to go back to
MySpace.
Right. They need to go back to dial-up.
Well, Paul, I've been at a training class where I had a doctor who said, if you get the guy to me alive, I'll save his life. He may not have a normal lifespan. And I go, wait a minute, doc, you center punch a guy, and if he's just hanging on, you can save him? He goes, yeah. Now, the issue is how much has he had low oxygenation for so long that he suffered irreversible harm? Because short of that, I can save his life. Wow.
Well, and Rob, you and I have talked to doctors that say, pistol rounds suck at killing. Rifle rounds are decent, but pistol rounds are really bad at doing what they're supposed to do. So, it's all, and if you want to stop the threat, we already talked about it earlier, shotguns. I mean, that's how you stop the damn threat. That's a game changer right now.
Isn't that interesting? So, and you, okay, God, where's Rob Campbell when we need him? Revolutionary War firearms had a large diameter. They typically shot buck over ball, meaning they were essentially shooting both slugs and buckshot at the same time. And medical, so those weapons compared to a modern AR, and modern AR is designed to wound, not to kill. So that's a great step sideways. The guns we're using now are less lethal than military arms used 200, 250 years ago. Fascinating.
If somebody came to me and gave me this, hey, let's go back to the Civil War, I'd say, great. Are you okay with me carrying 3 or 4 handguns on me?
Ah, yes.
Right? Because if they say, well, then that's fine, okay, then rock on. Let's get some single-action revolvers and let's do this. You know what I mean? Really,
the police and presidential security details are included, not exempted.
Right, because they didn't have those. They don't have all the technology that we have today. So let's bring them back to the Civil War as well.
And Rob, I want to just a second here. I want to go back to a conversation you and I. This has been a few years ago. We've had with Ben Branham on the air, where we were talking with Ben about using a .223 rifle, and he was saying that at a distance, he was shooting people in the military, and he's going, come on, stop, please stop, after shooting them repeated times. That just,
it's bizarre to think about. I mean, here's a guy who is in fear for his life. He's in a combat situation, and he knows he's hitting the guy. He knows he's wounding him. And he goes, now, the military theory was a wounded individual is greatly incapacitated, and he's a burden to the opposite side. Now they got to carry him. Now they got to transport him. That's a heck of a theory, but you're still waiting to take multiple shots to stop the guy who's trying to kill you. Yikes.
Mm-hmm. Dana commented, but 58 caliber soft lead Civil War mini ball would do worse damage than most modern rounds.
I hear you, Dana.
All right. Let's see here.
On to DGUs?
Yeah, you know what? I think we're going to do that. I think we are going to go ahead and step aside. We're going to hear from the good folks at CNJFO. Then we're going to come back with our DGUs. We'll be back right after this.
New Jersey is a civil rights wasteland where an unconstitutional law known as justifiable need keeps ordinary citizens from exercising their right to bear arms. New Jersey spits in the eye of freedom, ignores the Bill of Rights and the Heller decision. New Jersey politics are an anti-civil rights bulldozer and a spreading cancer. The Coalition of New Jersey Firearms Owners, a tax-exempt nonprofit, has a goal to defeat justifiable need, reverse course on all anti-freedom laws, and render aid to other jurisdictions by filing Supreme Court-bound litigation. CNJFO is a beacon of freedom behind the Iron Curtain in New Jersey. Join CNJFO's strong, enthusiastic patriots. Support the Coalition of New Jersey Firearms Owners today. Protect all our rights and return freedom to the Garden State. To donate or learn more, go to cnjfo.com.
Hey, and welcome back to the Defensive Gun Use segment of the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. These discussions are not legal advice. Some of us are trainers, but this is not formal training, and you need formal training. The Defensive Gun Use segment is intended as information, not as training. As always, the opinions of the hosts are only their own opinions and not those of any sponsors or other affiliations. Rob, we had something extraordinary happen this week. Tell us about it.
Well, I've had it a few times on my podcast. We finally, I'm glad, had a listener write in after he faced a potential DGU and he heard these stories playing in his head. I quote, "I've been a listener to your podcast for many years. It was put to the test yesterday. I witnessed a domestic abuse situation when I was simply turning around in a random driveway. The female was crying and walking toward my car as I backed out of her driveway. A very strong-looking and very out-of-control male was behind her, screaming, cursing, flailing around, and threatening her verbally. I rolled down my window and asked if she was okay. She responded no. She asked me to call the police because he shattered her car window. The verbal barrage continued against her and soon against me as well. Get the blank out of here. It was none of my blank business." All the years of listening to the defensive gun use stories and your analysis of them ran through my head in mere seconds. I decided the best course of action was to pull away and immediately call the police, which I did. If I'd seen him hitting her, it would have been a different situation, but I didn't. Neither my life nor hers were in an immediate danger. Now, I pray that the cops came quickly, because I wanted her to have a chance to leave. The good news is I'm not in jail or in a lawyer's office today, thanks in large part to the great advice I've received from your podcast over the years. That's from Brother Brannon from Dothan, Alabama.
Wow. Thank you for sending that in.
Go ahead.
Robyn, I
Robyn?
think you had something to say.
No, I was just going to say that's fantastic. I love that he was able to identify all of the reasons why he's, why watching was better than getting involved in this situation. So that was really well done.
I'm sitting here listening to the story, and I'm wondering if calling the police and leaving is a good idea versus calling the police and waiting to see when the police are going to get there. Because I'm thinking about being in this woman's situation. You see this person who could potentially save you. You tell him to call the police, and they drive off. Like, she must be thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to continue. The one person I had to help me is not helping me. So I don't know if it'd be a good idea to go down the road and wait until the police get there, like get out of eyeshot of the house. So if he sees you leave or doesn't see you waiting for the police, I'm not sure.
I get that. I can certainly understand getting out of his visual range. I can absolutely understand that. Try and make yourself not be a part of the situation.
Yeah, I mean, you don't know if he's going to continue to beat her if he can see that you're there, or if he's going to turn his anger towards you.
Right.
So I'm not saying the guy did anything wrong. I mean, he did an absolutely great thing, and it's wonderful that he listens to the show and picks up on all these tips. But just a couple more things to think about.
I agree, Charlie, that staying there on the scene and being a witness to the police might have been an unbiased third person that was there that could have shared his account of what happened instead of just saying to it over the phone to dispatch, actually being there as part of the police report.
Right. So
I like it because I have the sense it's a tremendously emotional situation. And as you say, Charlie, unless you've thought about it ahead of time, the probability that you're going to make a good decision in the moment is really small. And he goes, oh, wow, despite how I feel, it's not a lethal threat. It's not a gun problem yet. Okay, can I back out of it, get the police on the way? Which he chose to do. He had a plan. Good job.
Yeah, that's a great thing.
Absolutely.
Spotsylvania?
Yes, let's go to Spotsylvania. Anybody want to take it, or?
I'm going to say Robyn should take it. She hasn't read a story yet.
I have show notes. I'll do it. Spotsylvania, Virginia. The victim had just withdrawn cash from his account at an ATM around 9 p.m. He was approached by the subject in a threatening manner. The would-be robber then hit the victim several times. The victim responded by drawing his legally concealed firearm and firing several shots at the suspect. The suspect was not hit and ran across Courthouse Road in the direction of a subdivision. Deputies were already responding to the 911 call from the good guy. Always be the first to call 911. When they received a call from the suspect, he claimed he was shot at while at the ATM. After determining that the second 911 caller matched the description of the suspect, he was taken into custody. The 24-year-old was charged with attempted robbery and held without bond. This is not his first run-in with the law. Court records showed that he has past convictions for attempted robbery and using a firearm in the commission of a felony.
Shocking.
What am I going to say?
I don't know what you're. Well, if I know Rob, he's going to say, "What's the toxicology report going to say?"
Exactly.
Because I'm thinking the guy who did the attack in the first place was either high, drunk, stoned, something. Because that's the only way it makes sense to go. The guy shot at me when I tried to rob him. Sorry. Okay.
I'm going to say what I.
It did say that he approached him in a threatening way. So if he was aggressive in his approach, maybe toxicology, but might also have just been tunnel vision in on that guy at the ATM.
Maybe.
What I'm going to say, and we can pull out of this one, is absolutely win the race to 911.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
whoever
may be
calls the
old and
police,
slow, but I can win that race.
whoever calls the police gets to be the victim. And if you have siblings or if you have 2 kids, you know this.
Mm.
The thing that I'm still baffled by on stories like these is that people still use ATMs with the ability to get cash back when you do a purchase on a debit card. If you need cash, that's usually the way to go, and you can go to the gas station and put in $10 and take $20 out in cash. I'm baffled that people still use the ATM.
You know, every time I go to the world's largest retailer, there's I make a purchase. I will almost out of habit grab an extra 20, just so that should I need cash later, I've got cash.
Yeah, it's I call it the power of cash. When both my kids started driving, I gave them each a $100 bill, and I said, put this in your wallet and only use it for emergencies. And I did it for my son, and when my daughter got her driver's license, I did the exact same thing, but I had to list what constituted an emergency.
You know, I didn't have any soda in the car. That was an emergency.
Right. Going to Chick-fil-A is not an emergency, sweetheart.
All right. Anything else? Well, let me go. I haven't checked comments here lately. Nope, we're good. Let's do this. Let's take our last break here. We're gonna hear from ACLDN, and then when we come back, we'll do our final segment of the show. Hang on, everybody. Right back. Right after this.
This portion of the Polite Society podcast is brought to you by the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network. If you carry a defensive handgun, you need protection from the aftermath of prosecution. Even if you do everything right, you can be the victim of an overzealous prosecutor or even be falsely accused. That is where the ACLDN comes in. They provide immediate assistance when you need it most. If you find yourself under arrest, they immediately pay bail money and the retainer for your attorney. Additional funds are available for trial and civil proceedings. Beyond the money, they have far and away the best team in the industry, providing you invaluable information and training DVDs that are included with your membership and who stand ready to work with your lawyer on your defense. People like Masad Ayub, John Farnham, James Fleming, Tom Gibbons, Emmanuel Capelson, Dennis Tuller, and led by Network President Marty Hayes. Initial membership is only $135 for your first year, and you get 8 incredible training DVDs and other educational material when you join. If you don't have tens of thousands of dollars to defend yourself at your disposal right now, you need to be a member of the ACLDN. Go to armedcitizensnetwork.org and become a member today. And please mention that you heard about them on the Polite Society podcast.
And welcome back to the final segment of the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. At this point in the show, I normally go, hey, Rob, what's been going on over at Slopax lately?
You covered this last week when I was gone. I wrote about learning firearm safety from Alec Baldwin. Okay, I'm not trying to be an idiot. We know Alec Baldwin both said that guns are too dangerous for ordinary people to own, and then shot and killed his director of photography on a movie set. I get that. But no matter what we uncover later, there are things we already know with certainty. And I'll tell you right now, the investigation will uncover not one, not two, but a long string of errors and abuses. That's how human beings make mistakes. This was a human error problem. Look, rather than think we'd never make those mistakes, let's turn that question around and consider how we'd make the excuses they made. Excuses that, step at a time, eroded the safety procedures that were in place and then ultimately killed the director of photography. There are millions of new gun owners in the United States. They're learning how to live with firearms right now. Look, the gun culture is portrayed in Hollywood as being violent and impulsive, but in fact, the gun culture that I know is obsessed with staying safe and obsessed with acting responsibly. We've lived with firearms for hundreds of years. Each one of those little procedures that we invented, those are an invention that we need to learn and remind ourselves to follow. We learned the rules and procedures to live with guns, and you can use this as a reminder, unfortunately, from a fatal accident on a movie set. But it'll tell us how we can be safer today. That article is called What We Can Learn About Gun Safety from actor Alec Baldwin. It's at slopefacts.wordpress.com. Robyn, what have you been up to?
Well, I'm working on my monthly recap of all the great things that A Girl and a Gun has been doing, but I also just posted a couple articles. One of them is on the importance of documenting your firearms. Of course, we would never want a government registry or any other public knowledge, but it is good for gun owners to have a list of their belongings for insurance purposes, and a good way to document those things in a way that protects you and protects your investment. So that was a recent conversation that we've been having, and there's information online about that at agirlandagun.org. How about you, Charlie?
Well, I have officially decided to put out Riding Shotgun with Charlie on the second and fourth Tuesdays of the month. I've had a great 7-month stretch of putting out shows every week, which to me was an incredible and a bit of a daunting task, but it's great to know that for 7 months I was able to do that. I only have a handful of shows that I need to edit now, and these are going to get me through the next few months, and I'm hoping to film some more shows in the next couple of months. I've got a one trip coming up, and that's what I have going on. Today I actually filmed a show with the Massachusetts DC Project member, and she's also a member of the Well-Armed Woman. Her name is Carrie O'Clair, and she and I had a great pre-show talk for probably an hour and a half, and then we filmed a show, and then we probably talked for another 45 minutes after that. So cool. That's what I've got going on. Paul, how about yourself?
I'm so glad you connected with her, Charlie. She's a trip, and I love when my Massachusetts friends get together.
It's great. I met her about a month or so ago at a legislative event, and I reached out to her ahead of time, and she said she binge watched all of the DC Project Riding Shotguns. I made a playlist for all the DC Project ladies, and she said she watched all of them. And she said when she went to Summit, it was nice because she got to know who everybody was. And so when she finally got to see them in person, she thought it was really cool. So, and she said she enjoyed hanging out with you too.
Aw, she's awesome.
Yeah, she rocks. Paul,
I've just been doing daily bullets and PSP and one of the things I've been doing is I'm building, and this will probably be next week for episode 600. I'm building a new set. I'm changing the way that Polite Society Podcast works and will look when we put it out. One of the things that my broadcast software does that I've been playing around with, I'm going to try to see if I can get it to work right now, is I can get, and I did a little bit of it earlier, but let's see how this goes. Yes. I'm actually able to get the audio to come through on videos on YouTube as well. What you were seeing was actually playing off of YouTube into my broadcast software and back out on YouTube. As long as Charlie doesn't file a copyright claim, we ought to be okay. So
it's not my copyright claim; it was someone else's.
But that's, I mean, really all I've been doing has been working on getting the new set for PSP and getting some stuff done for the Daily Bullet. And I keep saying this and I keep hoping it happens, is getting the Weekly Bullet and getting the Armed Society back up and running. But that's all a part of getting this all back together, and that's still happening. So, all right. That's what's been going on with me. I think at this point, I should tell everybody to go ahead and join our Facebook listeners group. If you're a part of Facebook, just look on Facebook for Polite Society Podcast Listeners. It's a group, just our listeners are in there. It is moderated, so we don't allow any of Bloomberg type people in there, so you can safely discuss whatever you want in there. We do ask you to keep it about guns or gun-related stuff, but you're not going to run into any Karens in there. Let's put it that way. I think that does wrap up another episode of the Second Amendment Foundation's Polite Society podcast. So for Amy, Dana, Tracy, John, Susan, Amanda, Robyn, Charlie, and Rob.
Until next time.
Stay safe.
Be aware.
And we'll see you down the road.
The views and opinions on the show you just heard are those of the host and the guest and are not necessarily the views of any sponsors or other affiliations. But hey, not everyone is as smart as we are.
Okay, recording is stopped. I'm going to stop the streams here in just a second. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and I want to get this one in here real fast. George Keller says, thank you for the show. You guys are awesome. Second Amendment Foundation is awesome. And Pete says Supreme Court is going to vote again on the Second Amendment. Yeah, oral arguments come up Wednesday and 5 p.m. Central Time on Wednesday. Tune in, same place, Second Amendment Foundation's Facebook and YouTube channels. Tune in. We're going to have Teresa Einacker joining us from CNJFO. She is an attorney, and she's licensed to practice in front of the Supreme Court. She'll be joining us and talking about what happened at the Supreme Court and reading the tea leaves, so to speak, letting us know her opinion of how things went. So that does it for us today. Thank you for watching, and join us again soon.